Hello City Church, my name's Chloe and today I'm going to teach you how to make some Christmas tree crochet bunting. Why don't you get yourself a cup of tea and pop on some nice Christmassy music and let's get going.
To make this project you will need some wool. You definitely don't need as much as I've got in the shot here. This pattern then uses a 3mm crochet hook. You can use a bigger size if you want, but it will just make your trees a bit bigger. I use this smaller crochet hook to help me weave in the ends, or you can use a darning needle, something like that. Then I've got some scissors, I've got buttons, I've got these from the works, and then I've got needle and thread. The pattern I'm using was from a shop on Etsy called the Mayfield Makery, and it was just £1.50 if you did want to get it yourself. First, I will show you how to get the wool onto your crochet hook. So we're going to start by holding your wool like this. Then you're going to wrap it around your finger. Keeping hold of that crossed over bit, I'm going to push my hook through the loop. I'm going to grab the wool on the other side and bring it back through the loop. And then I'm going to pull it tight to secure it. We're going to start by doing 2 chain stitches to form our foundation chain. Start by taking hold of the main bit of wool. And keeping this bit of wool quite taut, move this tail out of the way. Take your crochet hook and put it underneath the wool like this. Twist and bring the wool through the loop that you have made and out the other side. That's 1 chain. Let's do that again. Move the hook under the wool, twist and bring it back through the loop. And there you have 2 chains. When you start the row, you aren't going to go from this one right at the bottom of the hook. Instead, you're going to go for this one where my thumb's just pointing and the second one in. Put your crochet hook through the back loop of this stitch like this. And then, as we've done already, put your hook under the wool and pull it back through so that you have 2 loops on your hook. And then put your hook back under the wool again, twist and pull it through both of the loops. And here it is again if you need. So you can see I now have 2 stitches and I'm going to finish this by adding a turning chain stitch on the end. I'm going to do this at the end of every row. Normally in crochet, you'll go under both loops to make your stitch. But in this pattern, the majority of our stitches will go through the back loop only. And that creates some really nice ridges. We're going to do 2 stitches in each stitch. We're going to go from 2 to 4. So, put your crochet hook through the back loop of the stitch like this. And then, as we've already done, pop it under the wool and pull it back through so that you have 2 loops on your hook. Then put your hook back under the wool, twist and pull it through. And then you're going to repeat that in the same stitch. So go through the same loop as you just did and you'll have 2 stitches. Then do 2 more in the next stitch along and you will end up with 4. And then just to finish it off, we're going to chain 1 more stitch to turn our row. The next row is a bit simpler. We're going to put 1 stitch in each of these 4 stitches, so you'll end up with 4 again at the end. It's exactly the same. You're going through the back loop like you've done already. I'll demonstrate it for you here. Here you go, I've got my 4 stitches. And then I just chained my turning stitch. As we're starting at the pointy end, we need our rows to get longer as we go down the tree. And we increase the stitch count every other row. 2 stitches, 4 stitches, 6 stitches, and so on. And then on the alternate rows, you keep the stitch count the same. And you increase whenever you put 2 stitches in the same stitch below. Now remember, and we don't use a stitch right at the bottom of the hook, but we go for the next one along. And as we didn't increase on the last row, that means that we will this time. We're going to do the same again. So 2 stitches in the first stitch and then in the last stitch. You'll just do 1 stitch on the stitches in between. You can see that I have my 6 stitches, though I think the last one was hidden at the end. And then of course I chain 1 for my turning stitch. Okay, so now we're going to head back the other way And as we've just increased on the last row, this one is just 1 stitch per stitch. So you should still have 6 by the end. So here I am just finishing off this row and I have 6 stitches. Great. And then I'll just finish by doing my turning chain. And then you just repeat it until you get to 14 stitches. So your next row will increase by 2 stitches, you'll have 8, and then the one after that will stay the same, you'll have 8 again, and so on. And you want to do this until you have increased to get 14 stitches. But just do that increase row, don't do the one that stays the same yet. We'll get to that. Off you go. Alright, I have my 14 stitches, and now you might want to grab some thread or some wool, and you're going to use this as a marker. So I'm just going to now pop this through the first stitch that I've done of my next row. And then I'm just going to tie that, and it's going to act as a marker. Now just move that marker to one side and we will carry on 1 stitch per stitch so that we finish with 14 stitches. Next up, we're going to edge all of our sides. The edging is done with slip stitches. So we'll put our crochet hook through one of the stitches down the side, underneath our wool, and twist and bring it through like normal. But instead of catching the wool again, we're not going to do that. We're just going to pull this second loop through the first one. So the stitches roughly work out as 2 per in section. You'll end up with about 13 in total, and you can see here the spaces that I'm going to use. So again, I'll put my crochet hook through one of the stitches underneath the wool and bring it through like normal. And then I'm going to bring that second loop through the first. And you're going to carry on doing this until you're just below the top. When you get to the top, you're going to do 3 slip stitches in the same space. We'll slip stitch that first one like we've just been doing. And then for the second one, we're going to use the same space again and then repeat it for the third one. And you'll end up with a small chain. This chain is going to cover the top of our tree. So now we'll go down to the space just below the top and carry on slip stitching like we did up the other side. Just make sure to stop when you get to the marker. At the bottom, I'm then going to slip stitch in the stitch that I've marked. And then through there. And I'm just going to finish that off by chaining 1 stitch. Here you go. And I'm just going to remove my marker. I'm now going to slip stitch where my marker was. I'll go under both loops and make the slip stitch, which will just give us a really nice corner. And you're now going to slip stitch in the same way under the next 4 stitches, which will take you to just before the middle, just like this. To make the trunk, you're going to start by chaining 1, and now you're going to do a single crochet stitch, or double if you're going in UK terms, and you're going to do 4 of these. These are just like the back loop stitch, but this time you're going to go under both loops, as you can see that I'm doing here. And like I said, you're going to do 4 of these stitches. So you can see here that I'm just finishing my last stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1 so I can turn my row and go back the other way. And then on the second row, we're going to do exactly the same again. I've tried to show you a bit more about the side of the stitch this time. So you're going to carry on and finish this row of 4, make a turning chain, and then do 1 final row of 4. And there you have your Christmas tree. Now to take out your hook, you're just going to pull it out like this. And then using your scissors, you're just going to cut the wool, leave a good amount of length on there, like this. And then you're just going to tuck that little tail through the loop that you've made and pull it tight. And you're going to need 8 of these in total. You might want to pause the video here and come back when you're ready for the next stage. So now we're going to sew or weave in our ends. And a darning needle is recommended, but I am using my very small crochet hook for this. But really you just need something to help you weave that wool in. So what I'm doing here is making space to bring my wool through. You can see I'm just wiggling it underneath, and then I'm going to grab the tail and drag it down. And I'm going to do this just a few times to secure that end. I think this is the last one I did. I'm just pulling it through, and then I am going to just cut that end off with my scissors like this. I wasn't too fussed about seeing this tiny end, but you could hide that in more if you preferred. I then did the same around the bottom and just followed the shape of the edge to keep it nice and neat. When I was finished, I just cut off the excess wool. 2 Christmas trees done, just another 6 to go. Once you have all 8 Christmas trees ready, you're going to grab some more wool. I've got a different colour here, and this is going to form the chain of the bunting. So I've got my 3mm hook, and I'm just going to put the wool back on the hook. This is exactly the same as we did at the start. And then you're going to chain 70. You might find it helpful to grab some thread just to help you mark the stitches as you go along, maybe every 10 or 15, something like that. And once I've got 70, I'm just going to add on my Christmas tree. So I'm now going to put my crochet hook through the top of the Christmas tree, and then I'm going to go under and bring that white wool through. So I'm pulling it through the green and back onto my hook. So I've got 2 loops, and then I'm going to slip stitch it. You're then going to chain another 30. And at this stage, it doesn't really matter which way your Christmas trees face, as long as all of your neat sides are facing the same way. This was my last Christmas tree, so when you get there and you've popped all 8 on, you're going to chain a final 70 chain stitches. See me just finishing that off now. And then I just pulled it out like we did with the Christmas trees. I'm going to cut the length, and then I'm just going to pull that tail through the loop like we did before. And there you have it. Your bunting is all on your chain. The last part is to add these cute little buttons to the tops of our trees. I got a few different colours and sizes, and I also opted for some cream thread as I thought that looked quite nice. I then tied a double knot in the end so it doesn't slip through the wool. And then I'm just going to go on and sew the button to the top of my tree. I think I went over each one twice just to make sure it was secure. I then just sort of tied it in a knot on the back and cut the thread so that it was short, but not too short so that it doesn't slip out. That button is nice and secure. Now I've got 4 done here, but you're going to need 8 in total. And you can of course make more if you want longer bunting. And there you are. There is your finished bunting. Here you go. Here's a little view of it in my house on our fireplace. I hope you enjoyed making it, and have a lovely Christmas. Bye!